Hey, now it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling. Sorry, I had to clear my throat there for a second. My bad. Um, yeah, it's a Saturday morning. It is 8:40 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and I typically would be recording this a lot earlier, but as you guys know, my situation in life has changed. We moved the son into the nursery. He's no longer in my bedroom. And so I have all my podcasting equipment in the nursery because that's the only room that we have like the space for it. So, um, and this is the second time I've had to push to like later because of the situation. So I'm going to rethink my strategy here and see about where the best place and time for me to record is. Um, so I'm doing this right now like 8:40, but we're getting ready to like start the day and all that stuff. So it might get to be a little bit tough to continue doing it at this time. So this might have to be like an audio only show coming up here pretty soon. And I might just start recording it on Thursday nights. I watched Impact on Thursday night. Um, and I was like, well, maybe I should just do the show tonight. I was like, nah, I like doing it live when everybody can, whenever some of the guys can hop into the chat and be a part of it. So I was like, I'll just wait till Saturday. And then here we are, we're like a little bit late, and I'm kind of slightly pressed for time. I'm actually pushing back some of our plans for the day so the way I could get this done. Right. And so it's a little bit difficult to do this, just given the situation, like having, we have a baby, and so babies take precedence over everything. So we'll see how it goes. This coming up Thursday, I might just record from my dining room like I did last week, like I did last Thursday night. I might do that so you guys will still get the audio, but you won't have the interaction, won't have the video for a little bit. I do know that once I get to South Carolina in a couple of months, this show will be a Thursday night show, and it will be very likely immediately live after TNA is over, if not like live, like shortly thereafter. Like it might be, 10, 15 Eastern Standard Time. Once I get to the East Coast, I'll swig a coffee for the East Coast. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm gonna keep it on Patreon. I'm not gonna go live for everybody. I like the Patreon community. I know Fightful does their thing, and I know Body Slam has a deal that they do live, and they do for free for everybody, but that's fine. They're not doing the content that I do. They just don't do this. We're just not doing the same thing, right? My shit's like way deeper than theirs. So, all right, but Billy is in the house, yo, from Philly. I don't expect a lot of people in the chat just because like this was like a spur of the moment, like kids finally awake. He was up a lot throughout the night, and then he had to, so we just kind of like brought him back in here like 6 a.m, and then so he just took like probably his final nap of the day. So we'll probably keep him up the rest of the day. So and then I had to cook breakfast for everybody. I had to get all that stuff going, and then now I'm finally up here. So anyway, you guys don't want to know about like all the goings on in my personal life, so, which is totally fine. But yeah, man, it's been a wild week for me. I'm gonna talk about it more with JD tomorrow, but I went viral again on Twitter. That's why you see I'm not afraid of the deep state Fed trolls. They came after me, man. I was making this joke about negotiating for Tony Khan to let Sting do Lex Luger's Hall of Fame. And which I think, look, I know that WWE's like super petty and they're dicks to him all the time, and he's been a dick to them back. I think in this instance, you should probably just like let it go. Just like sometimes it's okay to be the good guy. WWE's not gaining anything; it's really just about Lex. But I also see the point where it's like, no, fuck WWE, because they've been dicks to him like since he started. He's been dicks to them too. Like it's it hasn't been like a one-sided asshole fest. But Tony Khan has let his people onto their TV before. He let Bryan Danielson do a tribute to John Cena. He let Chris Jericho go on to the Steve Austin show on Peacock, and he's done other things. WWE's never reciprocated. They didn't let Lex Luger be a part of Sting's retirement. They let him be in the audience, but he couldn't be shown on camera, right? So I get it, but in this case, it's like it's the Hall of Fame. It's gonna be recorded at like 2 a.m. Nobody really cares. It's just about Lex. Like I would be fine, like just doing it. But I made a joke about negotiating on Tony's behalf and saying that Triple H had to admit that he was a bitch, which got all the Fed trolls after me. They were coming after me. They're coming after my family. It's like a lot of them were like they had come to the conclusion that I must be gay because I I made that joke. So it's like what is like homosexuality have to do with that joke? Like you just assume that a dude's gay because because he made a joke about Tony Khan and Triple H, admitting that he was finally a bitch, right? So, so I'll talk more about it with JD. Billy's got a question. We also plan on covering news on your Thursday night show when it's from South Carolina, bro. Of course. So, for those of you that don't know, this show hasn't really changed that much from 2021. I've done it the same way since 2021, just without JD the last couple of years. I do all the news first and then I cover the show. And that's not going to change. The only thing that might change, in which we had this week, there's not a ton of news, is that there might not be as much news to cover. And so in that sense, I would probably have less of a news heavy show and I'll cover the actual TV show. But covering the TV show is never going to change. If there's news to talk about, I'll always open up the show with that. If there's no news to talk about, we'll banter for a little bit, hit the live chat, and then go immediately to covering the show. And then when news does break, I will just pull the phone out and then record something. Or so when I get to South Carolina, I have my own office. And I'll be working from home a couple of days a week. And so I will have more opportunity to do more recording. And that's the plan. Says you're late, Baldy. Hold on, brother. Look at this lettuce going on up here. Like it's a little thin, but it's there, bro. It's a little thin, but it's there. Come on. Billy says TK should negotiate something like rights to some Sting footage. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Like if WWE or AEW can get there, and like not everything in the catalog, because you're talking like Sting's probably got hundreds of hours of WCW footage out there. He was their top star for a long time. I mean, Hogan became the top star in '94, but Sting was always like prominently featured all the time, right? So, but if they could get some footage, or you know what I mean, that would be cool. They could do something. You remember when TNA let Ric Flair do the Hall of Fame? So the Four Horsemen went in the Hall of Fame that one year, like 2011, 2012, I can't remember. But they inducted the Four Horsemen, and they wanted Flair to be a part of it. Like, of course. And at first, TNA didn't want to let him go, but then they realized that Flair was going regardless, and then they were just going to get into a big lawsuit, and they didn't want to do that. So they negotiated with WWE, like Bruce Pritchard negotiated on behalf of Dixie Carter, and Dixie Carter wanted Christian for Slammiversary that year. And Bruce Pritchard was like, fucking Christian? It's like, why don't we go for John Cena, and then we'll settle for Christian? But she's like, no, I only want Christian. She just liked Christian. And sure enough, they got Christian on that show, and he would have rather been doing anything else in the world than be at that Slammiversary show. But he showed up and hit his lines, introduced a video. I don't see something like that happening this time around, because I'm like thinking like, who could WWE send over as like a make good? And it's like, no, there's nobody that Tony Khan would want, right? There's nobody that he would really want to have on his show for like a one-time deal. If they send over, like say they did send over John Cena, that would never happen. Okay, just tossing it out there. So they did send him over for like, what would he do, right? And then he's gonna come on and he's gonna look like a 50-time bigger star than everybody else on AEW. Like that wouldn't make any sense. There's former AEW talent on WWE, but it's like, what, you're gonna send Andrade for a night? You just send Pentagon? No, it's like there's nobody to send. But I think negotiating some type of licensing deal with some of the footage for Sting would be cool, right? Or for another one of his talents. Like there's a lot of talent on AEW that came from WWE, right? So I think that would be cool. Or if there's like a music thing that they could do or something, right? A trademark, an IP, something like that. They could work out a deal, but they can't just like not do something. If they really want Sting on the show, like there's a way to get it. Tony Khan at the very least is like he is predominantly a pro wrestling fan, but he's also a businessman and a successful businessman at that, right? We can disagree with some of the business moves that he's made for AEW, and there's plenty that I disagree with. But you can't deny that the guy's not successful. He is. He's got like like his dad owns all these professional sports leagues, but Tony Khan specifically owns like his data analytics firm, and then now he owns AEW, and he's turned both businesses into massive successes. So, lots of sports leagues in lots of sports teams in all the sports leagues uses data analytics firm. So, including my Los Angeles Dodgers. So, but yeah, so. Yep, we're good there. So, all right. So this is Brace for Impact. We got not a ton of news to talk about, but I wanted to kick off with our top story. Chris Bay, one half of ABC, just won the Shad Gaspard Jonathan Huber Award from the Wrestling Observer alongside UFC legend Mark Coleman. The award honors out of the ring heroics, charity, courage under fire, going above and beyond, etc., etc. So. Base story. So back on October 27, 2024, at the TNA tapings in Detroit post-Bound for Glory, he was teaming with Ace. I'm just reading this verbatim. He was teaming with Ace Austin against the Hardys. And then there was a neckbreaker spot that with Matt Hardy that just went wrong, just an inch off, and Bay couldn't move. Paralyzed in the ring, kept it quiet. He kept it quiet for a while, and he finally hit on his 29th birthday on February 13. He dropped a video walking again, and we talked about that. So, and we already broke down what happened in the ring that night, and he went into detail with it in his first interview with Chris Van Vliet earlier this week. So he was just talking about that night. He said he was hurt from the night before, didn't feel like wrestling, but pushed through because it's the Hardys, his idols. Did it 6 nights a week back in the day. The match was going great until that jolt hit. He thought it was a stinger, told the ref to roll him out, but couldn't get up. His adrenaline faded, and he realized he couldn't feel his toes. He ended up having to have emergency surgery, fused his C6 and C7 vertebrae, broken neck, spinal cords damage. TNA's ringside doc team saved his life, rushing him to the hospital. Bay says Adam Copeland and TJ Wilson, who've been down the neck injury road, have been his rocks. TNA's covered every medical bill, checked on him daily, auctioned gear off to support him. The locker room even camped out at the hospital that night. Bay calls him his family. So that interview was like heart-wrenching. Like you just feel for Bay. One thing I do want to make note of. Right. And I'm not trying to be petty here, but I told everybody a while ago that TNA was covering all the medical bills. But people didn't think that TNA was doing that because they set up the GoFundMe and they're doing the auctions. That stuff was more for quality of life things. And that stuff was also like as a way to pay tribute to him. They covered the medical bills from day one. Chris Bay, Matt Hardy said it on his podcast a while ago, but people still want to believe him. Bay has now come out and said that. What I don't see is the people that were saying that TNA was not covering his medical bills are coming out saying, hey, I was wrong. Right. Which is something that I would do. I legit, like if it came on the show and said something that was just wrong, I would come on here and admit that I was wrong. But I haven't seen a lot of people do that. And it's because they're cowards, to be honest with you. But yeah, TNA covered every medical bill. He said, would he come back wrestling again? He's just now learning how to walk again. So would he eventually want to wrestle? And it looks like he might want to wrestle again one day. He said the line to his girlfriend, like, who knows, maybe, 5-6 years down the road, maybe I'll get that itch to wrestle again. But right now he's just focused on his quality of life and living a good life. He wants to have a family. He wants to do all of that. So that's cool. So, good for him. And I hope that he has a really good recovery. I hope he lives a great life after this. I don't care if he ever wrestles again. It would be nice to see him wrestle again. I think that would be a great story. But if he doesn't, that's like not that important. What's important is the man can walk. He has a family. He can have kids. He can live a normal life after this. Pro wrestling is like of very little importance. So kudos to him and kudos to the Wrestling Observer for giving him that award. He is definitely deserving. Mark Coleman's deserving too, if you don't know his story. Like his house caught on fire, right, in the middle of the night, and he saved his parents' life. Like he woke up and basically rushed them to safety. Like left, went back into a burning building, got both his mom and his dad out, right, and then went back in for his dog, and unfortunately his dog didn't make it. But and then he was in the hospital for a while because of all the smoke inhalation. So so it's good that he got that award too. So I think that's a cool award to give to people. Next up, Homicide. Man, he is retiring this week after over 30 years in the wrestling business. He wrestled his final match on March 20th, Outlaw Wrestling's End of an Era in Brooklyn. He and Bull James defeated Mike Santana and Alpha Jr. Why is he retiring? He had a brain cyst from years of hard hits, travel, all that other stuff. Was messing with his vision and speech. And so he just kind of retired abruptly. I guess he had just found out. And so he just did one last match, and it was on Thursday at a local indie. And he got to do it with some of his close friends, clearly. And so he's a great legacy, man. Obviously he was a big star in Ring of Honor. And then he was, of course, like a featured attraction in TNA for years in the LAX group. And he was also in a lot of great singles matches. I do remember the one match where they had like the red dome steel cage, and like you had to like escape it like through like this hole at the top. It was on live TV, and I think it was like the first episode with Hulk Hogan, I think it was. And then he's going to escape, and he got like fucking stuck, and it was like time stood still for a while. It was like this guy is up there on the top of the cage trying to escape out this little hole, and he's stuck, and he finally made it through. But multiple time tag team champion with him and Hernandez. I thought one of the great acts in TNA history, and I think that LAX, the original LAX, should be in the TNA Hall of Fame for sure, right? Like, we got America's Most Wanted, we got Beer Money, Motor City Machine Guns, LAX, and then of course Team 3D. And you can throw the Hardys in there now, like now that they've come back and they've gone on this great run. As kind of like your Mount Rushmore of tag teams in TNA. James Storm on there twice, obviously. And look, I'm not trying to sell any other tag teams short, but I would say like those would be the teams, right? And if you want teams that are just strictly identified with TNA, like TNA original tag teams, it's AMW, Beer Money, LAX, and Motor City Machine Guns. Like that would be the Mount Rushmore. Some people would probably like throw Triple X in there, but that didn't last a long time. There's other tag teams too, but those are the ones that are really like coming to mind. But super influential dude, great like brawler, hardcore wrestler. The Gringo Killer, one of my favorite like finishing moves of all time. The fantastic finishing move. And it was obviously it's the Vertebreaker, but I think his just looked super like sick every time he did it. I'm just trying to think back of some of the great matches that LAX had. I was not like a big Ring of Honor guy, so I can't really speak to his Ring of Honor days. But one feud that I really loved, and the kind of the feud that really got me back into Impact. I always talk about Slammiversary 2018, Pentagon and Sami Callihan as like being the match, but the feud that got me interested in that show in the first place was the new LAX versus the OGs, which the OGs was Eddie Kingston, Homicide, and Hernandez. And I loved that. And so they feuded all the way from Slammiversary until Bound for Glory. And the Bound for Glory was like they had the no mat. It was just wrestling on boards. Ridiculously stupid match. So like it was intriguing. Don't get me wrong. It was fun to watch, but it was really stupid to do that. Like the boards are slipping around. All that stuff. So that match was crazy. Probably a dumb match to have, but I'd never seen anything like that. So it's like that just went to be original. So and Conan Conan deserves a lot of credit for getting Homicide there. Like fought hard for him to keep his name, keep his finisher, and to kind of be like authentically who he was. Big shout out Homicide. Fucking great wrestler. He did worked every company except for WWE. Like he's never got a shot in WWE, but he even did some stuff in AEW just because everybody there in AEW is like super influenced by him and loves him. Of course, like Moxley and Eddie Kingston and those guys. And then you had Proud and Powerful there that was super influenced by Homicide. Billy says Homicide is on my indie Mount Rushmore. Super influential. Yeah, for sure. Just fantastic. And Kingston and Conan had some awesome promos in that feud. I was so disappointed when Kingston left. Like, that's where when he was in DCC, I didn't really know anything about him. And I wasn't really paying attention to TNA at the time. But when Eddie Kingston was there, part of the OGs, I was like, this guy is great. And then they had him wrestle, and he wrestled like he was a manager. So he was just focused on being a manager. It wasn't until I saw him in AEW, I was like, okay, like he's super awkward. He's not very athletic, but the guy can actually work. Like his stuff looks weird, but that's okay. Like he's unique, right? He's uniquely Eddie Kingston. Didn't have a great body, just a brawler, can do some suplexes. You can tell he's an All Japan fan. We could have had that in Impact. But they, like Callis and D'Amore, just saw him as a manager. So when he wrestled like he was just a manager. And which, kudos to Kingston. I thought he did a good job of that. Like he's wrestling like he's a pussy, right? Like that's the role that he was playing. And I thought he did a great job of that. But I just feel like we were robbed of like a legit run by Eddie Kingston. Saw Homicide. Billy says he saw Homicide in a New Japan ring in Philly. He kissed the logo on the canvas and said it was a dream to wrestle in that ring. Yeah. So big shout out to Homicide. What a legend. Everybody loves Homicide. All right, quick ticket update. So I went in detail last week. I got some of the statistics here from Dobby the Brain Heenan, the legend himself. So quick ticket update. So this coming up, the next tapings in St. Joe, Missouri. Not looking so good. So they're about half the floor seats are gone for both of those. So night one, 446 out of 493. So both like kind of right around there. So hold on, 446 on March 28th and 493 for March 29th. So nearly half the floor seats gone. I mean, it's less than half. Let's just say that, because there's like over 900 floor seats available for both nights. And so, so not looking too hot there. But they just sent the Hardy Boys there, and they'll probably have to, knock down them ticket prices a little bit and get on the street and hustle and get people into those, get people into the seats. So St. Joe is not a big town. It's outside of Kansas City. So they're gonna have to hit Kansas City and try to get people to commute over there. And we'll see. And then if they were smart, they would go to Fort Leonard Wood, the Army base, which is probably like a 2-hour drive, but is what it is. And you got Whiteman Air Force Base there, and they probably need to go hustle and get people into the building and fill it out. But not looking so good. Unbreakable, though, all the floor seats are sold out for Unbreakable, and they're gone. Let's see, 644 out of 644, 0 remaining, so 100% sold for the floor seats. So that is going to be on April 17th in Las Vegas. So that's like right after Impact that night. So that's obviously insane. That's a great one. That's at where the UNLV Running Rebels play basketball, right, at the Cox Pavilion. So that's a pretty legit spot. They'll probably have like 3,000 people there. Let's see, Rebellion April 26th and April 27th in LA, 361, 438 sold, 82.4% locked in, and they might open more sections. Ring of Honor drew about 4,100 there last time. I would say that's probably the goal if you're TNA, is to get like over 4. May tapings in Brampton. So they're about 68% sold both nights, floor seats only. Brampton night 1 is actually under siege. I know we had talked about it, and I don't think I actually brought this up last week. I can't remember if I did or not, but Billy reminded me this morning that Brampton was originally a TV taping both nights. At least that's the way it was being advertised, and that's the way it was being leaked to Fightful. And then last week, they announced that it's actually Under Siege was night 1. So I went on this whole rant about them not delivering on their TNA Plus specials, and we're getting a TNA Plus special in May, Under Siege. No information about Against All Odds in June, so we'll wait and see on that. We'll see what happens there. But we are getting one in May, And so, and BQ did reach out to his contacts, and they said that there would be, by the end of the year, there would be the amount of TNA Plus specials that they had said that people would get. So it looks like so far all they did was move the one from February to April, and that's Unbreakable. So, well, that's good, right? Now, did we have anything to do with that? I don't know, but I'm going to tell people we did. So we'll see. Slammiversary, July 20th in Belmont, New York. 2,440 out of 4,100 sold. Almost 60% sold. That's all seats, with several months to go. There are people out there trying to paint this as being a failure. They have already decided way ahead of time that this is going to fail, right? And so now they're almost 60% sold. It's still a failure to these people, okay? And there's about over 100 days left till we get there. They haven't even announced a single match. Not only is this thing going to sell out at 4,100, they're going to open up more seats. They're going to do over 5. I would guess they're going to get anywhere between 5 and 7,000. And for a TNA show, that's fucking huge, right? And then people will then say, well, AEW did more. Yeah, AEW is a significantly larger company with a significantly larger budget that is being featured on a significantly larger platform with TNT and TBS. Okay. So they are not even in the same ballpark. I only bring up AEW's numbers and comparing them to TNA because I know that they're not going to get to that. I'm just comparing it to show how good TNA is doing, right? With a significantly smaller budget. Okay. So when I compare them to AEW, I'm not saying that they should beat them. I'm saying that, look, this is what AEW did. Now here's TNA, the smaller company. They're going in there and look at what they're doing, right? So AEW is doing this with this budget. TNA is doing like a little bit below with this budget, right? So they're not going to beat in that same building for what Forbidden Door did. There's not. They're not even trying. That would be an unreasonable ask, right? So people are going to say, well, Forbidden Door did 11,000. Yeah, well, that was Forbidden Door. That's AEW. This is a much bigger company, right? TNA is smaller. They're on Access TV, right? They don't have the same platform, right? They don't have the same, they don't have the same amount of big stars. They just don't. It's comparing apples and oranges. They're not in the same ballpark. Okay. Slammiversary may break their attendance record, says Billy. I don't know about that, man, because I think at one point they did like over 8 in London. So I don't know that they do that. Maybe domestic attendance record, which I think was like, over 6 for that lockdown 2013 in San Antonio. So maybe they could do that. Maybe they can do the domestic. I think that's going to be tough, though. It's definitely going to break their all-time gate record for sure. For sure, it's going to break the gate record. Billy says, in fairness, several of the TNA Does No Wrong crowd compares to tennis AEW and claims to be number 2. Those people are weird and gross, and those are not like real humans. Those are people that are just caught up in the culture war between WWE and AEW, and they're to be ignored and blocked and muted and moved on. So I only compare it because to measure what TNA's success is. But ticket sales still doing good. And then, of course, the Sacrifice was, around 3,500 both nights and doing great. Big crowd for Impact this week. So let's go ahead and get to the Impact reaction show. Impact was the fallout from Sacrifice from El Paso County Coliseum. The show kicked off with Knockouts champ Masha Slamovich in the ring, giving Cora Jade props for the fight, but saying she's the best champ in wrestling anytime, anywhere. She teased Rebellion, but then Tessa Blanchard cut her off, claiming she'd take the belt. Then, bam, NXT's JC Jane blindsided Masha. Officials swarmed. Santino Marella hit the scene, booking Jane versus Masha next week and banning Tessa from ringside. And then Santino chewed out his daughter, Ariana Grace. She swore she didn't plan it and hinting at a later surprise. So, swig of coffee. Ibu, a buddy of mine, been on the show before, had an interesting tweet. He said, man, every tweet that I'm seeing on my timeline of Impact tonight is NXT stars. There was a lot here tonight. There was obviously JC Jane, and then you had the 2 different tag teams that showed up later in the evening. And it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's too many. That is fucking too many. You guys got to be original, okay? At some point, people are going to see through this. Like, I understand the need for NXT to subsidize TNA's women's division because it's so weak and they're not doing a good enough job of recruiting talent, bringing them in and signing talent and developing their own talent. So they're being subsidized by their partners in NXT, and it's just too much. It's too much. People see through it, right? They know that your division's weak. And when they see a bunch of NXT thing, it doesn't really like create this diversion or like take people's attention away from how weak it is. It only exploits the fact that the division is super weak. There is no tag team division. There is no tag team division. The singles division, they got some decent stars there, but it's pretty thin, right? You got to develop your own talent. You can't keep bringing in these NXT stars every single week, right? Because eventually that gimmick is going to wear off. Okay? It's weird. It's weird. But people are talking. That's what they see. TNA is now becoming a subsidy of NXT, at least the women's division, right? So we gotta fight against that stigma. It's like, well, Mike, that's not the reality. No, the stigma and the perception is the reality. That's what people think. And I get it. I can't go in and fight against it. I can't go in there and be like, well, hey, well, hold on now. There was only 2 segments that had NXT people. That people not going to understand that all they see and what's being publicized are NXT stars up and down the show, right? That's it. And it's right now it's the 2 tag teams and JC Jane, and then we just had Cora Jade this past Friday, and she was on the show for a month, and so like I don't care if it's like 1 or 2, but now it's like, oh man, we're getting a lot. Okay. It's like there's got to be a good balance there. Okay, first match. Rascals, Trey Miguel and Zach Wentz took on the Northern Armory. And Judas Icarus and Travis Williams with Eric Young on commentary. Wentz started hot, but the Northern Armory took over. And Trey tagged in. They hit a double team high spot. Pinfall win. EY tried to jump in post-match, but Ace Austin ran in with a chair. Quick, fun bout. Rascals are doing great. EY has definitely got some stuff cooking. At some point, they're going to have to get the Sinner and Saint to look like a legitimate threat to win some matches. For sure. Hold on. Let's see. I should have looked at the chat. So, Billy says, TNA needs to do a better job explaining these NXT wrestlers. Can't assume all fans watch NXT. Io, since when were outside fans concerned is my question. Since like the dawn of time. It's like not understanding what a product is doesn't mean they're not going to talk about it. Dre says they need to stop putting Santino next to Ariana. Make sure that's gorgeous and realizing they're twins. Okay, Io, I've seen you say this before. So this would give TNA more time to work that out. No, that's not what this is. TNA is not trying to work anything out. They only got Maggie Lee. So like Demore's been gone over a year. Okay, how much more time do they need? This guy Scherner and Gail Kim have been running this thing without Demore for over a year, right? And it's like slapping Band-Aids on a fucking carotid artery. So with this NXT stuff. Okay, if they get NXT chance, that should at least count. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing, right? And I'll tell you why. JC Jane's a heel. She attacked your babyface champion, Masha Slamovich, who is a babyface, attacked Masha and got NXT chance. Okay? That's not good. That's not a good thing. That's not something you should be proud of. So develop your own talent. Plug in NXT talent to make things feel special. Right now, it's very clear that the NXT women are on this show because TNA doesn't have enough. Okay? They're putting Band-Aids on deep, deep cuts here. Okay. Speaking of women who aren't stars, Jim Miller caught up with Zaya Brookside after last week's missed attack. Zaya's eyes are fine, but burning. She's pissed. Rosemary's in her head. Rosemary popped up on the monitor taunting Zaya about hesitating against Savannah Evans, daring her to grab a partner for later. Zaya vowed revenge, teased a mystery partner. So there you go. And then first class penthouse time. AJ Francis and Casey Navarro. I mean, they're pretty over his heels. So they come out. Their guest is Chavo Guerrero Jr. He interrupted their bullshit. And this whole thing was edited to death. So, like, I just note, like, they were plugging in some crowd noise. They edited Chavo Guerrero heavily. It's been a while since Chavo's been on TV, and I think he just kind of didn't know what he was doing for a little bit, because they kind of had to clip it and like make it usable footage. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that, but you could tell, like, Chavo, it's just been a while, right? And the guy's in his 50s, and it's just been a long time since he's been on TV. Like, I think the last time we saw him on TV was when he was doing like a stint for AEW, and people thought he was going to stick around, but they just ended up not keeping him around. So anyway, Chavo Guerrero comes out. He's defending El Paso, getting the cheap hometown pops, getting the cheap you got the Eddie chance and the Chavo chance, doing all that stuff. And then Frankie Kazarian comes out and crashed it, calling out Chavo for costing him the tag titles in 2012. That's what he's mad about. He's like, hey, I remember that 13 years ago, you cost me the tag team titles. And then Aztec Warriors, Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr. joined the fray. It looks like Octagon's on the roster page, as I believe Io pointed out in the chat. It seems like Octagon Jr. is sticking around. Yeah. So there you go. So like I said during the Sacrifice review, Laredo Kid updated his gimmick. He went from losing singles matches to losing tag matches. Now, I get the feeling. I'm not spoiling anything. I just get the feeling that next week they're going to win because they got Chavo in his hometown. They're not going to beat Chavo. But we'll see what the record is at the end of the year and how well the Aztec Warriors are doing. And I think my theory that TNA has no respect for luchadors is going to end up being right. Now, they could go on a big run as tag team champions over the summer. I just happen to think that's not going to happen. Okay. But yeah, this whole thing was edited to make it look a lot better, and I thought they did a pretty decent job. Santino booked the 6-man tag next week: Aztec Warriors and Chavo versus First Class and Frankie Kazarian. And then we get the Sacrifice rematch: Mike Santana versus Mustafa Ali. Cabinet was banned. Santana dove on Ali pre-bell, smashed him to the timekeeper's table. Crowd was hot on fire for this. Ali targeted Santana's arm, but after a few minutes, Ali bailed, taunting on commentary that he's Santana's unbeatable addiction. Count out win for Santana. So at about 5-ish minutes. I dug this. So it's like, so people hate finishes like this. Look, and I get the feeling there's going to be like some people that are right about TNA. They don't like truly understand wrestling. They just want everything to be fake MMA, right? It's like, we need a clean finish here. No, in this case, there's a lot more legs to the feud. Ali is a dick. He is a douche, right? That's the gimmick. He just got himself way more heat by walking out on this match, right? And then, afterwards, Jim Miller catches up to him and like, hey, why did you run away from Santana? And that, like, it's like, no, he's not running away from Santana. So I would say that they need to do a cage match, but I don't trust TNA to get a cage, right? After that monstrosity we got in El Paso, what a god-awful cage that was. But I mean, it sounds like they're building up a cage match. I don't know. I'm curious if this is going to be a Rebellion match or an Unbreakable match, but either way, feud's continuing and I like it. It's the best feud going on in TNA right now. You got two guys that are really, really good at playing their parts, playing their roles, playing their characters, just doing a fantastic job. Okay. Nick and Ryan Nemeth hit the ring to explain, turning on Matt Hardy. Ryan hyped Nick as the best, who got monster heat, chanting Hardy, Hardy, Hardy. Nick said TNA's buzz started with him, not the Hardys, who stole his shine. Leon Slater then stormed out, calling, and he also accused the Hardys of driving wedge between him and his brother. So, like, the turn makes complete sense. This was a great turn. And for those of you that are criticizing him turning on the Hardys and not Joe Hendry, The Hardys are the biggest stars on the show. There's a reason why the Hardys are in St. Joseph, Missouri this week trying to sell tickets. It's because they're the ones selling the tickets, okay? That's not saying that Joe Hendry is not a big star, too. He is. It's just the Hardys are the top attraction in the company right now, okay? Leon Slater stormed out, calling them nuts, promising to whoop Nick next week. Leon Slater's a good promo. I like it. I like his promo style. I think he needs to update the look and stuff, but I think he's a good promo. This kid's gonna be a star. Probably not here, but he'll be a star in one of the big two one day. Anyway, a brawl erupted. Nick laid out Slater. I really dig the Nick's heel turn. And then next we get a boring tag match: Zaya Brookside and Lei Ying Lee versus Rosemary and Savannah Evans. Rosemary tagged out quick, letting Evans bulldoze Zaya. Oh yeah, Zaya Brookside and Zaya Lee. So they got Zaya and Zaya. Zaya hit the broken wings and a DDT, but Lee struggled on defense. Rosemary missed it Evans by mistake. Zaya capitalized on it. Lee hit the Thunderstruck for the win. It was sloppy, but the baby faces went over. I wonder if they're setting up, like, it's very clear that Rosemary needs a new tag team partner. If they're setting up Jessica Havoc, which I think would be a mistake, or if they're setting up Abaddon. I don't know. Curious to see where this goes. All right, next up, I got to be honest, I missed this whole thing. So I'm just going to read this, and you guys tell me what you thought. I assume it's bad, but I had to leave the room during this, not because of the TV show, not because of what was happening on TV. I just had to go take care of the kid. Right. Okay. Championship celebration by Elegance. New Knockouts Tag Champs Ash and Heather rolled out with George Iceman and a neck brace and a $4,000 cake and beefcake models. Ash demanded her wish, but Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson from NXT interrupted, claiming they're the best team anywhere. Spitfire hit the ring for a rematch. Then Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley joined the chaos, wanting a shot. So that was the surprise that Ariana Grace said. Then a brawl broke out. Santino booked Gigi and Paxley versus Ash and Heather next week, banning everyone else. Legend and Jackson roughed up security, got in Santino's face. Maybe this is something for Unbreakable, like a four-way match. I could see that. Four-way where half the teams don't work here. But so there you go. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to see that segment. So there you go. All right, next up, quick squash. Mance Warner defeated local El Paso guy Magno. I like squash matches, and I like what they're doing with Mance and Steph DeLander. They need to let Mance talk more. He's a good promo, really good promo. He can do both babyface and heel promos. He's great. Steve Mackin got a video showing an Eric Young's Northern Armory pitch. He didn't like EY's vibe and wants no part of it. Tensions are brewing there. So there you go. And then main event time, Joe Hendry and Elijah versus the System, or should I say the Job Squad, Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards. Jesus, these guys are not winning anything at all lately. They're just losing match after match after match. Hendry's 60 days as champ and still going strong. He started with a power slam. Elijah kept it rolling. Alicia's meddling, flipped it. The System isolated Elijah, hot tag to Hendry, fall away slams. We will rock you, stomp, stomp. Crowd lost it. Myers speared Hendry. Edwards hits a splash, but Hendry countered with System overload with the standing ovation. Elijah assisted with a pinfall victory. They haven't started teasing the turn just yet. I know they had the backstage segment where Hendry is like, "Look, I know one day you're gonna hit me with that guitar." So, but they got them teaming up like they're Hulk and Paul Orndorff. But there is no jealousy angle at this point, so I'm like wondering when they're going to get to it. Part of me is like, hurry up and get to it. But there's also part of me that's like, look, Elijah kind of over as a babyface. And he just got here. And maybe that's something you hold off for a while. I don't know. We'll see. But I think obviously that's the match that they want. I just don't think that's a very big match. So I'm wondering what it's going to be for Rebellion. Do they bring in an outsider? They might have to. Or do they just do like a fucking, put everybody in, like 6 people in the match, right? So they do that a lot, so I don't exactly know what they're doing. The top feud in the company right now, outside of Santana and Ali, is the Hardys and Nemeth brothers. So now they got 2 really good feuds going. I think Macklin is struggling as a babyface with this Eric Young feud. It just seems like he's not that into it. He might just be better off as a heel, right? Or they got to tap into something with him because as great a talent as he seems like he's just not into this feud. That doesn't mean I didn't like the promo tonight, but stuff that I have just seen with him out in front of the crowd just seems like he doesn't like acting, right? He runs better on emotion and feel, and it just seems to me like he's not feeling this one. I don't know. That's just what I get from watching. Next week is got a lot going on. Gigi and Paxley versus Ash and Heather. Aztec Warriors and Chavo versus First Class and Kazarian. JC Jane, or next day, JC Jane versus Masha. EY versus Ace Austin. Slater versus Nemeth. That's a pretty stacked lineup there. So lots of stuff happened. Look, I cranked out. I didn't think that I had much to talk about, and I have I had quite a bit to talk about. Let me get to the chat here. All right. Billy says that Zaya promo was rough. Yeah, she's like, sometimes you understand why people get fired. So, like, I'm not saying she's like a completely like bad talent, but like WWE realized, it's like, look, it's Robbie Brookside's kid, and probably never going to get past the level that she's at right now. So let's cut bait, right? I realized that this is my favorite Penthouse segment, though. I was entertained. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. Only AEW fans complain about non-finishes. Not necessarily. All right. If you walk out, it will lead to a chain or a strap match. Yeah, that could be dog collar match, strap match. I just hope they don't do the 4-corner gimmick. If they do a dog collar match, which I think would be cool, they do it the way that it was like done in the past and the way the AEW does them. It's like it's a regular match, but you're wearing a dog collar and a chain, right? You don't have to tap the 4 corners. That gimmick is fucking stupid. It's lame. It's WWE bullshit. But if they just do it like legit, where it's like you just beat the shit out of each other, that would be cool. All right. Lucky Charm says, do you think we could see tag teams formed with one NXT star and one TNA star? I think that would be a unique dynamic. I could see that. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do something like that. That makes sense to me. Somebody was talking about a potential, like, down the road when Worlds Collide show, NXT versus TNA. I think it could be more of like what, you get some, like a couple NXT versus TNA matches, but then like do what they do at Forbidden Door, where it's a lot of like tags and like mixed tags, where they have like baby faces from both brands teaming up to go against heels from both brands. I could see that. And like you just have like a geek in each of the teams to like take the pin, right? I could see something like that. I think that would be fun. Lucky Charm did that with Rosemary and Wendy Chu. Yeah, that is true. They did do that already. Okay, this was the first time in wrestling history that a cake was introduced and it wasn't smashed in anyone's face. I feel like it was a wasted opportunity. If you got the cake, you got to smash it, right? Somebody's got to get the cake. And George Iceman's right there, right? Like, he's the guy you humiliate. Okay, Io says, my guess is they'll have that match months later. Yeah, so you're talking about Elijah versus Hendry. I guess that too. I just don't know when. Like, at what point do we get there? Can they have Kaz call a shot at Rebellion? I think that would make sense. There is precedent for it. Moose was a heel and called his shot at Hard to Kill, right? There is nothing that says that he has to be like the snake in the grass that calls a shot, at like the perfect time, right? Well, like when the title holder, the champion, is down on the ground and beaten, although he has tried that a couple of times and he's been thwarted. And maybe that is the impetus to get him to be like, you know what? It's LA. I'm an LA guy. SoCal Uncensored, right? And I'm just going to fucking do it in my hometown. Maybe they do that. I don't think that's a big match, but that could be what he does. Bully called the shot too. Yeah. So, like, it's not a guarantee that the heel, that's the difference with, I don't like Money in the Bank gimmicks outside of WWE. I think you just leave it to be WWE. I think for me, the Kazarian thing has kind of ran its course and I'm ready for it to be over. So if he just called a shot at Rebellion, I'd be fine with that. I just don't think that's a big pay-per-view match. I don't. Io says, I expect crossover matches for Unbreakable. I do too. I do too, because everybody's going to be in town. I expect big TNA matches. I don't think this is going to be a storyline driven show. Okay. I think they're just going to, it's going to be kind of like just matches, right? Like unique and fun matches, which I think is fine. Like, I don't think every show has to be storyline driven. I don't, especially on like a WrestleMania weekend show where you can do a couple of big matches, right? Like have Hendry defend the title against somebody from the company in a storyline. But like the rest of it could just be like, you got all these guys from the indies, you got everybody in town, then you can have WWE people on it. You know, you can have like the entire wrestling world is going to be in that city. Do something fun and wild and unexpected, right? You remember years ago when TNA ran a WrestleMania weekend show they did in New Jersey and just fucking randomly booked the Lucha Brothers versus RVD and Sabu. And that match ruled. Like, it wasn't like a good match, but it ruled. Like can bad matches rule? Yeah. But it was so fun to watch. And it was so cool seeing RVD and Sabu team up against the Lucha Brothers. That was so cool. Like you should do stuff like that. That's what WrestleMania weekend's all about. Like doing things you normally wouldn't be able to do anywhere else, right? That's what it's all about. So, but all right, guys, I gotta get time for me to call it a day. Only got 51 minutes in. Like I said, it wasn't a ton of news this week. But so for those of you tuning in a little bit late, we're probably gonna switch up the schedule soon. This coming up Thursday, I might just do a Thursday night show, right? While everybody's asleep, probably like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. my time. Okay. And then I'm just going to try to fit the show in where I can. I ran late today because I do podcasts in a nursery. Okay. But once I get to South Carolina, I get to the new house, I'm going to have my own office, right? I'm going to go live every Thursday night after Impact is over, and it'll be on Patreon. And then of course, probably release it. Like I'll record on Thursday night. I'll probably just release it Monday on YouTube. Right. But Patreon is my, priority. So, but I think that's going to be it for us this week on Brace for Impact. And until next time, mahalo. Brace for Impact is coming fast. Hold your breath, but it won't last. The walls are closing in.